When presented as a presentation, this work is four things. Number one, a body of scientific research. Number two, a proposal for an epic artwork. Number three, a performance lecture. And number four, maybe an essay or text of sorts. Title: Phobos Self-Degradation. Premise: the artist sends a form of self-degrading archival document / time capsule to the Martian moon of Phobos.
Circling the red planet Mars are two tiny moons, Phobos and Deimos, each less than 15 miles across.
Place: Phobos, the largest of Mars's two moons, and the one closest to Earth, is strongly believed by the scientific community to be the current logical place in which we could potentially develop a human community in the near future, due to its relatively weak gravitational field. This was announced in New Scientist back in January 2010. Phobos is a name you're going to hear a lot of in the coming years. It may be a little more than an asteroid, just 2 billionths of the mass of our planet, with no atmosphere and hardly any gravity, yet the largest of Mars's two moons is poised to become our next outpost in space, our second home. Although our moon is enticingly close, its gravity means that relatively large rockets are needed to get astronauts to and from the surface. The same goes for Mars, making it expensive to launch missions there too. While performing a Wikipedia search on Phobos, I came across the prediction that Phobos is orbiting continually closer to Mars, which will result one day in it being smashed into smithereens. Phobos is a small, irregularly shaped object. Phobos orbits about 9,377 kilometers from the center of Mars, closer to its primary than any other known planetary moon. Phobos is one of the least reflective bodies in the solar system and features a large impact crater, Stickney crater. It orbits so close to the planet that it moves around Mars faster than Mars itself rotates. As a result, from the surface of Mars, it appears to rise in the west, move rapidly across the sky in 4 hours 15 minutes or less, and set in the east. Due to its short orbital period and tidal interactions, Phobos' orbital radius is decreasing, and it will eventually either impact the surface of Mars or break up into a planetary ring. I like the scientific failure in all this to announce internationally through New Scientist that we're looking at Phobos as a potential place to further continue the chronology of the human race, only then to find out that it would ultimately lead to the inevitable death and destruction, i.e., we will become extinct at some point and there is no stopping this. Even if we make it to the end of the universe, it will end. Art, I believe, places itself and often begins in such failure, and is interested in all of this in order to attempt making sense of things. Now, there's an interesting theory laid down by Bart Jordan that Phobos and Deimos, the other Martian moon, are man-made satellites created by a previous civilization, inhabiting Earth that vanished without a trace. He has mathematically calculated that their orbits are deliberately synchronized with our Earth day and our clock day, designed to function as second hands in their roles as timekeepers of the cesium second. He believes we should consider the moons as a warning to our atomic and space technologies, and concludes, man's future is in his past with no escape present. I did some more research into Phobos being a man-made satellite and came across some interesting material.
The really interesting thing about Phobos and Deimos to me is that I've always thought of them as kind of underdogs of the solar system in terms of the way all the other moons are. They might not immediately jump out as being places to look for water or life, but they do still have a very interesting story of their own to tell.
They're quite different from our moon in that they're very much smaller and are perhaps related to asteroids from the asteroid belt, but their origin isn't completely clear.
So its origin is not completely clear.
About 20 miles across, biggest on its axis. It looks like a knobbly potato. It's got craters. It looks like it's been beaten to hell in a handbasket. been there for billions of years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's falling toward Mars, isn't it? Slowly?
Very, 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 very slightly.
Okay.
Back in the early parts of the 20th century, last parts of the 19th century, an astronomer named Douglas Sharpless, working at the Lowell Observatory in Arizona, not too far from where I am tonight, began looking at the what he called secular acceleration of Phobos, meaning when they took photos several years apart, instead of following Newton's laws of gravity, the moon appeared to be slightly ahead of where it should have been in its orbit, which means it's accelerating, which means it's falling toward Mars because the lower orbit moves faster and faster, which is kind of impossible. I mean, if something's been there billions of years, why would it suddenly now be in what some have estimated to be the last 10 million years of its existence, which is like a blink of an eye in a cosmological timescale?
Yeah, it's almost like it's in a small free fall.
Well, yeah, but an inch a year is not a lot in any one year, but, you know, a year, a million years, 10 million years, it adds up. It's like spending money in the Fed. Anyway, thinking of Gerald Salanti there. Anyway, so the concept developed over the decades in the late 19th, earliest 20th century that maybe there was something really interesting about this little moon. Remember, 20 miles across, the size of a small village or, you know, tiny town. And in 1966, two major global astronomers, I.S. Shklovsky, a brilliant Russian astrophysicist, and a good friend of ours, Carl Sagan, whose first claim to fame was when he did this, co-authored a book called Intelligent Life in the Universe. Hardcover book, classic. Everybody go out and find a copy. You'll want it on your bookshelf after tonight. Okay, I guarantee you're going to want this book. Because in that book, they proposed, Shklovsky really did it, and Sagan followed him, agreeing that the data indicated that Phobos might not be natural. It might actually be a very big, big, big space station, an artificial moon that had been placed in orbit by the Martians. This is the 19th.
So Phobos has an irregular accelerated orbit, might not be natural, a space station, an artificial moon placed in orbit by the Martians. So this led me to research Intelligent Life in the Universe, the book talked about in that clip, authored by Shklovsky and Sagan. And here's what I found. Astrophysicist Dr. Shklovsky calculated the orbital motion of Martian satellite Phobos and came to the jaw-dropping conclusion that the moon is artificial, hollow, and basically a titanic spaceship. Mars's two moons, Phobos and Deimos, translate into fear and horror. As Mars is named after the god of war, the name seems appropriate. Two facts deeply troubled Shklovsky through his research. Firstly, both moons are too small. No other planet in the solar system has moons as tiny as the Martian moons. They're unique. Secondly, their origin bothered him. Were they captured asteroids as others assumed? No, they could not be. Their orbital plane was all wrong. And they're too close to Mars, much too close. Even more amazing, Phobos changes its speed from time to time. Russian astronomer Dr. Sherman Struve spent months calculating the Martian moon's orbits with extreme accuracy early in the 20th century. Yet, Shklovsky astutely noted, as the years progressed into decades, the mystery moon's orbital velocity and position no longer matched its mathematically predicted position. After lengthy study of the tidal, gravitic, and magnetic forces, Shklovsky came to the inescapable conclusion that no natural causes could account for the origins of the two odd moons or their bizarre behaviour, particularly that exhibited by Phobos. During an interview about the peculiarities surrounding Phobos, Shklovsky said, in order to make this break-in action so significant, and taking into account the extremely rarefied Martian atmosphere at this altitude, Phobos should have a very small mass, that is, very low average density, approximately 1,000 times smaller than the density of water. A density that low, less than an Earth cloud, would have dispersed Phobos eons ago. That could not be the solution. But can a continuous solid have such low density, probably smaller than that of air? Of course not. There's only one way in which the requirements of coherence, constancy of shape of Phobos, and its extremely small average density can be reconciled. We must assume that Phobos is a hollow, empty body, resembling an empty tin can. Well, can a natural celestial body be hollow? Never. Therefore, Phobos must have an artificial origin and be an artificial Martian satellite. The peculiar properties of Deimos, though less pronounced than those of Phobos, also point towards an artificial origin. Files, the digital science fiction time capsule. We are currently using hardware and software that is untested in accordance with their lifespans. We do not know how long they will last. The digital file types we use ever more frequently and therefore become to rely on could fail us at any point, leaving us with a potential existential nothing, maybe just zeros rather than ones and zeros. I am proposing to develop a file type that is designed to degrade at the same rate as Phobos will take to impact Mars, therefore creating a symbiotic and utopian end of humankind. This is currently estimated at 11 million years. The physical destruction of the human race through the collision of Phobos and Mars, and the digital/religious/memory destruction through the self-degrading file type. The files are imagined to be a time capsule similar to the ones created and buried during celebrations such as world fairs and other events. A time capsule is a historic cache of goods or information, usually intended as a method of communication with future people and to help future archaeologists, anthropologists, or historians. Time capsules are sometimes created and buried during celebrations such as world fairs, a cornerstone laying for a building, or other events.
Welcome to an important moment in the history of Blue Peter. Today we are going to be revealing the contents of 2 time capsules buried by Blue Peter in the past so that you, the children of the new millennium, could discover something about the programme as it used to be.
It was 29 years ago, on Monday the 7th of June 1971, that the presenters of the Time, Valerie Singleton, John Noakes and Peter Purvis, went out of the studio to plant our tree and bury our first box for the year 2000.
That's absolutely tight. Johnny, do you reckon you can come over here and help with the box? It is lead line. I don't think Val can lift it.
I can't do much more there, actually.
That's tight. Right.
Oh, master mechanic you are with us.
Oh, I am. I thought I was very good with that. Get there.
Right, let's get that rocking. There we are.
OK?
There it goes. Oh, beautiful. Right.
Right, I've also got a plaque here. This is the Blue Peter tree planted 7th of June 1971 for the year 2000. So I'm going to push that plant at the front, push that well into the earth like that, and as the earth goes in on top of that, it'll fill it out. And that really
so if you watch the first programme in the year 2000, you'll see this tree. It'll be magnificent, 30 feet high. And that plaque will be just as good as new, I reckon.
Yeah, and by the way, don't you forget it's there. You know it's there, so why not tell your children about it? In the year 2000, they could write in. They might even win a Blue Peter badge for sending an interesting letter, you never know.
And hundreds of Blue Peter viewers have been writing and emailing us to remind us that the great day has arrived.
Some of you have even held onto this classic Blue Peter book, which contains a feature devoted to the box and another all-important reminder.
A little bit later on, we will be welcoming back Val, John and Peter as our VIP guests to help us unveil the contents of that very box.
So that was one kind of time capsule. Kindness Quartzy is a film made in 1982, directed by Godfrey Reggio and featuring a score by Philip Glass. It focuses on the relationship between humans, nature and technology. In my mind, this film work is the closest thing we have to a time capsule. So maybe an eroding digital version of this film is the way to go at the moment.
Critics around the world have called it a remarkable film event, a breathtaking experience, a fusion of image and sound. Until now, you've never really seen the world you live in.
Koyaanisqatsi comes from the ancient Indian Hopi religion and literally translates as life out of balance. Location, instinct. There is a natural monolith on Phobos that is estimated to be the size of a building 28 to 42 stories high. It is situated close to the enormous Stickney crater, and there has been much debate as to whether this is a monolith or just a large pyramid-shaped rock. Here's Buzz Aldrin.
But something I saw you get really excited about was on C-SPAN. You talked about this monolith on the tiny potato-shaped moon of Mars, and I knew about its moon. I didn't know about this monolith, and you got really sparkly-eyed and animated about this. Tell us about this monolith and why you want to land on that moon first.
Well, I want to land on the moon first, whether it has a monolith or not, because it orbits around Mars in 7 hours and is quite close, much closer than our moon is to the Earth. And from that moon, people can control robots, rovers, all sorts of assembly processes, chemical processes, fuel processes, and other things on the surface without endangering the crew. And it's much easier to take people there, actually, than it is to take people to and from our moon. Because of the smallness of it, it takes longer to get there, and when you get there, you have to stay longer. So it's a significant challenge, but it is a major, safe stepping stone before going to the surface of Mars, and can be approached in inspiring, logical steps. Now the monolith just happens to be a location of a Marsology, not geology, feature that is a physical structure, but it is very, very curious, and it's quite close to where we would like to land. And Canadian studies extensively of going to Phobos for science. The science team has said, go for the monolith. So they think that is sufficiently scientifically attractive, and it's close to where you want to be to observe from there the planet Mars
Well, Commander Aldrin, isn't this interesting? We have 2001 Space Odyssey. We have this, what looks like almost a perfect monolith on this moon. And then here you are, one of the first moonwalkers. When the Eagle lands, you're on television saying we need to go there to see this monolith. You're saying it's very curious. And again, I saw your eyes light up on television. What is your gut this monolith is, or what are Marsologists saying it could be?
My opinion and the Marsologists' opinion don't guide public opinion and curiosity for the unusual and the bizarre. We need lots and lots of public discussion about the pros and cons of going anywhere.
No, I mean, certainly it's a way to get people interested. I see that. But okay. What do you think this is? I mean, tell me what your gut, or as a person, a doctor who studies this, what does this look like to you?
It's a big, tall rock.
It's a big, tall rock. Ephraim Palermo thinks differently. He's an artist, and this is his website. He's done a whole load of work on the Phobos monolith, including studying light and shadows made by the object and making scale models of it. He comes to the conclusion it is a monolithic structure seemingly rising out of the ground. He also identifies a baby monolith close by. There is no weather on Phobos, so it cannot have been caused by erosion, and because of Phobos' weak gravitational field, it isn't leftover material from the impact that caused the Stickney crater, as it would have just drifted off into space. It seems, therefore, that the object could have been placed there by unnatural means. Land Fleming, a scientist who runs the Society for Planetary Research, then took Palermo's ideas and proved him to be scientifically correct. It is a monolith. Conclusion. I would look to place the self-degrading file, which at the moment is a digitally degrading version of Canis Quartzi, either under or within this monolith. It is the only feature in an otherwise featureless land, and so intrigues us the most as is likely to give more clues on how it came to form, thus providing us with knowledge and a beginning in our proposed new world. We are drawn to this monolith like the apes in Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. It becomes a beacon of belief, and with a self-degrading time capsule planned to expire on the day of destruction, serves as a ritualistic countdown clock.
Oh,